my day job at the time, I was leading a program for women startups, basically helping them get to the next level for their technical company. And then as part of that experience, first of all, I realized, hey, I can have a day job that I actually really love, which was cool. But the second thing was startup culture is terrible. Sorry.
No, we've touched on that briefly in some other ones. Please
We
do
did.
tell. Please do tell.
Oh my gosh. Um, so I guess I didn't really understand it until I was kind of in this program. So we took these, between 10 and 12 companies for a cohort over, 12 to 16 weeks to really get them ready to get their businesses to the next stage, which often was venture capital. But the problem was, I mean, we spent so much time trying to help these women get venture capital, but at the same time, we know that investors don't fund women-owned businesses, and it was just like, why are we spending so much time on this? So anyway, that led us to thinking about alternative options for financing instead of just VC,
Cool.
because that is getting better, but it's going to take some time. The other thing is, I realized that a lot of the just startup culture in general is very much like, if you don't quit your job to start a business, you're not a real entrepreneur, which I just think is BS.
Mm-hmm.
And like, a lot of people around me believe that. And I was like, it's not true. First of all, I consider myself a real entrepreneur and I didn't quit my job. And then second of all, not everybody can do that. Like, even if I wanted
Right.
to do that, I have caregiving responsibilities. Like, I have a dependent. I can't do that. I can't put my finances at risk to start a business. And so it just made me so mad because I'm just like, oh, this is so frustrating. And then the thing that really got me going was these women who were in this program who essentially were full-time entrepreneurs, and they would come to me after some time and say, Jess, I'm sorry, I had to get a job. And I'm just like, that's okay. But they felt like
Mm.
complete failures. That's
Yeah.
like, it's okay that I would be disappointed because they had to get a job. And I'm just like, we just need to change the conversation about this, because it made me so mad, because it's just like you feel like a failure because you have to go get a job, when that could not be further from the truth. And I think that's why that was a big part of the reason why I'm like, we need to talk more about side hustles, because this is crazy, just crazy. Like, if women would start as a side hustle without quitting their job, they could build it up to the point where they'd feel more comfortable taking the leap and taking that risk. But they would have done so much of the work of the um, what is it, product market fit and all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. They could have done all that while they're working their day jobs, so that by the time they get to the point where they're doing consistent income, they can kind of take it from there, versus like trying to quit their job and then live off their savings and make all this happen in such a short time. So anyway, I will get off my soapbox now, but
No, I love your soapbox. Like, this is what I think
that
people need to hear this. Keep going.
it just made me so mad. So yeah, so that's why I wanted to talk more about side hustles and give side hustles more of an alternative to um, just doing the startup route. So when I kind of had that epiphany, um, I'm like, okay, I'm going to target my newsletter towards side hustlers. Like, I don't know what else I'm going to do, but I want to focus on side hustlers. And I started changing a lot of my messaging to be about helping side hustlers get started, because at that point I had been a side hustler for probably 5 years. So it's like, well, if anything I learned can help other people, then that's where I want to focus. And um, so yeah, so that was one of the big changes. So it got a lot more focus, right? So tips and resources for side hustlers. And um, I think since then, like, it's just like I kind of try to pay attention to like what people are clicking on, what people like to see. So I include a lot of stuff on self-care in there, which people really resonate with, mainly because I've struggled with it a lot. Um, and I also realized that, which was surprising to me, that like after doing a couple surveys of people who read my newsletter, like the part that they love the most is like my personal note at the beginning. which I would have never guessed that that would be the part that they would like the most. I thought they were coming for the articles or the resources or whatever. But they appreciate like me sharing my journey and my hard days and my great days and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I just kind of like try to pay attention to those things, to kind of improve and try and tweak things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that you're listening and even surveying
Yeah.
people, right? Like we have to get
Yeah.
that feedback somehow. I'm constantly
Hmm.
like sitting down and saying like, you know, is this resonating? Is this not? I'm talking to my partner, or talking to the random person that messaged me and said, "Oh, I really like today's episode," and I'm like, "You listen, great. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions," and like
Absolutely.
that feedback is so key because otherwise, you know, it does become kind of like a just an empty room. And like, I don't know if you have the same brain as I do, but it just starts running in a million directions. And so it's good to
Yes,
have something that grounds you. Um,
for sure. Otherwise,
what,
you're going to try like 5,000 different things, which may not necessarily make sense because you're like, no one's commenting. I need comments.
yeah,
I need
yeah.
feedback.
I was even like, I, I don't even know how to describe what I was doing 6 months ago on the live stream, but it got a little bit out there. And someone actually commented, they're like, can we get back to like the other stuff? And I was like, yeah, all right, I hear you, I hear you. And so that's super fun. But let's go back to that
It's actually a
soapbox.
good test, actually.
Oh,
That's
to
that's
do
a good
something
test,
totally
actually.
crazy and
Yeah, to
see who's
see what people
listening.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I've even changed the name of it like 7 times, but I'm going to try
nice.
not to do that this year.
Okay.
When it comes to, I want to go back to what you were talking about with startups, because I think that that's so
Sure.
important and it plays into what you did with the newsletter too, right? Your slow builds over time. And I think one of the big things that people overlook, whether it's the world of entrepreneurship or even jobs, because you've worked in the field of career changers where people will
Hmm.
quit their job to do a career change. And I've done that.
Yep.
I've done that for entrepreneurship, and I've done that for a career change. And it's fun and it's exciting, and it has a lot of it gives you an urgency that maybe
Hmm.
wouldn't be there otherwise. And sometimes people won't act unless they are in like their hair's on fire. And so
Sure.
like there is that, but there's also the dark side, right? Where I can't count the number of times people have come to me and been like, I didn't plan my finances out right. And I'm starting to pay off these loans and I'm not even close to getting a job yet. And I'm like, well, we didn't do the planning right up front. We didn't do the job search right in the process. A pandemic hit, which we weren't ready
Sure.
for, and all these different
Yeah.
things. And so, so often, we try and do these big career, almost like trash our life and start fresh. Or I've definitely done that. And I think, as I look forward in my career and I look at what other people are doing, I really think these like long 5-year, 10-year transitions are the smart
Hmm.
way to go, where you do little moves every day over
Hmm.
year periods, multi-year periods, until you find yourself in a new place. And that takes away the pressure to come up with the right answer right off the bat,
Yes.
right? Because what ends up
Yes.
happening when you just jump, both feet in, is that you end up making the wrong decision. And the
Hmm.
cliche is go to law school and then drop out with 200K in debt, right? And so what what other sort of things have you seen, um kind of well, sorry, I want to just get back to that point you made of like, just because you have to go get a job doesn't mean you stop being an entrepreneur. And
Yes.
it actually is even smart for an entrepreneur to get a job to fund their entrepreneurial activities. And one of my favorite quotes is, use your job as your first venture capitalist. Like take that money and
I
put it
love that.
into your side hustle. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
reiterate that point you made, because I think, some people who are looking to make a career change, they will feel bad if they have to go get a job driving Uber or whatever it is to pay the
Right.
bills. And I'm like, pay the bills so we can
Exactly.
calm down enough to actually focus on the search versus like frantically trying to get something.
Well, yeah, because people can sense when you're desperate too, right? Like you don't want to appear desperate when you're, as a business or as a job searcher. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's just not a good place to be. So, yeah, do what you got to do. I mean, I've done Postmates. right? Like, I've had a rough time in transition sometimes, and I've done Postmates, and I have no shame. I was just like, okay, well, I don't drive and I don't bike, so I was the walker.
Oh,
I was a
wow.
Postmates walker, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to walk during my lunch and get some exercise and make a little money, and that was cool and it was
Nice.
great. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of judgy people in the world, who need to keep their opinions to themselves, because no one knows like what you have to do or what your experiences are, even what your finances are. So, I mean, if you kind of have to cobble together a few things, until whatever hits, that's totally fine. Whether that's a new job, a new, or getting funding for your business or waiting for the business to take off. Like, there's no shame in, um, kind of supplementing your income some other way. And I think, unfortunately, there's shamers in the world. So let's not listen to them. Listen to
Yeah,
us. Yeah, listen
absolutely.
to us too.
And
Yeah.
and I love that you brought up our old word, which is the cobbler life. That was
Yeah.
that was we bonded over the hashtag cobbler
Yes,
life a while back.
we did. We did.
Just constantly, I don't know. Next month I'm gonna get a new contract. We'll see what happens and make it all fit together.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so now that you're at this point,
Yeah.
and you've started to you've got advertising in your newsletter now, you're getting
Mhm.
it out there. What are the plans for the future? Where do you hope to take it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I want to continue growing it, because I feel like my newsletter is something really special. And sure, I'm biased, it's true. But I feel like I want more people to be able to read it, because I think that what I am able to show people is that in my wacky cobbler life that I have, is that there's not one way to work.
Hmm.
You can, like, I have two day jobs and a side hustle, right? Like, people don't do that normally. But I think because I do that, and I'm also caregiving and balancing a bunch of other stuff, like, I give people permission indirectly to see what else they can do, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people come to me and they're just like, oh, well, I want to kind of be an entrepreneur, but, like, finances are kind of weird. It's like, well, why don't you get a part-time job? I mean, you can still be an entrepreneur. Like, there's not one way, right? Like, but I don't think people think about it because they don't see a lot of examples of it. And so I just want more people to feel like they can, just kind of like choose to design their own life in a way that makes sense.